DeMar DeRozan, all-star for the Toronto Raptors last year, practically missed the entire month of December after a tough injury against the Dallas Mavericks. The Toronto Raptors were on the road for the majority of the month, and without DeMar DeRozan, though, I thought this team would still be able to keep their defense intact, and the concern would be offense. However, looking back on the stretch without DeMar, their defense took a huge step back. Are you guys as surprised? I'll start with you, Elias. Are you surprised at how far the Raptors defense stepped back with a guy who's mostly a scorer outside of the picture?
I'm not surprised, and I don't think that it's the missing piece that has anything to do with it. I think it's a matter of fatigue traveling to the West, coming off of a strong first half of the season. It's just going to take a toll on your body, and some of the guys are just simply fatigued at this point.
But does that preach a lot to the philosophy of the team defense? Because, I mean, no one's going to go out there and say DeMar's a top-tier defender one-on-one.
No, but there's a familiarity.
Exactly.
And he's been on this team for 6 years now, and he knows the rotations. He knows where to be in. Even if he isn't known as a lockdown defender, I agree with you, nobody in the league is going to say that, but he knows where to be, and there's a comfort level of having one of your mainstays on the court defensively, and I think that surprisingly or not surprisingly is a factor in why the defensive numbers have gone down dramatically in his absence.
Yeah,
I would definitely agree with that. I think when you have someone who's, again, such a constant fixer on the court for the team, that even though he's not your main defender, when you remove him from that piece, the familiarity of everyone on the court, you know what I mean, and the spacing and different things like that, the game is so intricate that, removing a piece like that can definitely change.
You speak about familiarity. He's a huge cog offensively, but that problem wasn't replicated on the offense. They picked right up, and they were scoring up to the top hundreds. Maybe it was some of the styles of teams they were playing, but the problem didn't transfer to offense.
Well, I mean, we
defense is harder.
I was just gonna say, anybody who's ever played the game knows it's always easier to produce on the offensive
But you
end.
plug out a 20-plus point scorer?
Yeah, but you plug out a 20. I mean, it's the NBA, and I mean, even outside the NBA, you always have guys who are waiting for the opportunity. You know what I mean? And you have a 20-point scorer, but he's also a guy who kind of leads the team in shots taken. You remove that guy, you spread the wealth. You can make up for those points in other areas.
Yeah. Were you surprised with, even though they plug in a Landry Fields into a starting lineup, they're still scoring?
No, not really.
Really?
Sorry,
you guys are experts, man. Damn.
The problem isn't scoring. I mean, you have 14, 15 guys on that roster. They're NBA players. They can score. The problem is situational scoring. And who can you depend on? I want to say end of quarters, but they have Lou Williams. But late game scenarios, fourth quarters,
or runs. Let's talk about it.
Well, but it was last year where the Raptors, and even at points this year, where the fourth quarter is where the Raptors dominate, and their offense is efficient. A lot of people have played during the game, so there's more flow. Everybody's been in the flow. DeRozan gets to the free throw line, gets easier points that way, and they were keen on Lowry in those fourth quarter situations, and DeMar is just better than most of his teammates at getting those buckets late in the game.
All right, so let's break down the West Coast road trip, all right? They started out in Chicago. It was a 6-game road trip, but the last 5 against Western Conference teams. They go 2-3 against the Western Conference. Elvis, your impressions, is that a win for this Toronto Raptors group? Some of those teams, 2 of the wins, big wins against tough teams.
I mean, if you watch it, anybody who's watched the game, the Raptors are in the game, right? And we talked about it.
Except for Golden State at the end.
Again, right? But when you talk about it, we're missing our All-Star.
Yes.
I mean, we're going to have another All-Star this year.
Better.
By the grace of things. But when you remove that 20-point score, like you said, and you're facing those high-octane offensive teams, again, we're talking about the travel, the time difference, the fatigue, all those things play a factor. So for me, them going 2-3 on the West Coast against top-tier teams, you got to be happy with that.
I remember talking to Sweets about this actually during mid-season.
Oh, Sweets getting the shout out.
Well, we were talking about whether we consider the Raptors to be elite at this point, and I was saying that, well, we don't know yet until they do get on the road. They play the West Coast teams, and that's when you kind of justify where they're at in the league as a whole. And I think it was a successful trip for them going.
Look,
okay, I got another question for you guys before we even go further into this. Okay, Kyle Lowry, Eastern Conference Player of the Month. We got to give him some props for that. Huge props for that. But now you got 2 All-Stars on this team. and you've got a team that really understands yourself. How far away are they, Dan? I'll throw this to you because you're very familiar with the team and around them. Do you see them having an opportunity to jump into the elite category this season, or is that still a future mark?
It's in flux. I mean, after the wins against the Clippers in Denver, the back-to-back wins, everyone's starting to think, wow, elite team. And then Portland happens, and really, you know, I consider the trip 2-2-1. Portland was an overtime game. The Blazers got hot in overtime. What are you going to do? Okay, they played a beautiful game in Portland. It would not be fair right now to consider the Raptors an elite team, and I don't think anybody in their management or coaching staff would say, oh yeah, we're an elite team.
So who are we calling elite at this point? Are we
Eastern
saying
Conference?
or as the league as a whole? Are we saying San Antonio? Are we saying Chicago? Who else is on that
Let's say
list?
teams that have consistently won rounds in the playoffs. And
So we're not even saying Golden State then?
Well, Golden State won a round 2 years ago. They beat
That's
Denver.
not consistency.
No, they haven't been consistent. Are they an elite team in the league right now?
I feel like we're going down a rabbit hole right now because we're about to get into like a whole big argument. And we still have more to talk about, guys. Listen, we're going to save some of this for later in the show. We still have a lot more to break down coming up on the other side of the break. Actually, we have a bunch of things coming on the other side of the break. Why don't you guys just stay tuned? We got to go big game hunting and tell you about how Josh Smith is no longer wanted anywhere near Michigan because these Pistons are streaking.